only do I live in Montgomery County, I was born and raised in Maryland, in Baltimore City. And so, although I've been in and out of the state one thing or another, I know what it's like to live in a state where the Democrats have dominated for a long time. We've seen occasions when we thought we were about to get the upper hand. When I was in college, Spiro Agnew was governor. In fact, when I was in law school, I was a White House intern for Spiro Agnew. Before being a White House intern, was a popular. I'd like to say I emerged from that job poor but unindicted. But with Bob Ehrlich's win, I thought that might be a change. But you know, it's a tough state, and but this time, and I know Ken will be talking about some of the specifics, in this district, this is an entirely winnable race. And it's just so important, despite being in the land of the Washington Post and the Democratic domination of Annapolis, that we show that we can win in a district like this. Because it's obviously important that we replace Obama in the White House. It's critical we hold the House of Representatives. We're going to lose some seats in places that we shouldn't lose them, in House races where it ought to be a Republican victory, but for one reason or another, we're going to lose some seats. We need to win seats where the Democrats don't see us creeping up from behind, and this is a district that's one of those. So we change here in Maryland, we change a few other places. We'll hold the House. We need to take the Senate. Because we've been digging ourselves a deep hole for the last 4 years, and it's going to take some time to get out of it. Obviously, the economy is the dominant issue, but you know, I think more and more Americans understand that not only do we need a team in Washington, in both houses of Congress and in the White House, that is going to fix the economy, which we've not done for 4 years, but is going to take a strong action to correct the mistakes that Obama's made in the national security field. And if you needed any proof of that, what happened literally just a month ago in Benghazi and in the attacks on our embassies all around the Middle East, this is the consequence of the perception of American weakness. This is the proof of what you saw in that ad and what we've been saying for a long time. We've got a president who believes that American strength is provocative, that we're the cause of the problems that we encounter around the world. This is what Jeane Kirkpatrick, in her famous speech about the San Francisco Democrats in 1984, called the Blame America First syndrome. There have been a lot of other Democratic leaders who have shared this view, but now we've got one in the White House. And so his whole approach on policy around the world is to be comfortable with American decline, to see the reduction of our influence as a good thing. When in fact it's not American strength that's provocative, it's American weakness that's provocative. He's looking at the world through the wrong end of the telescope. And in case after case after case, I mean, I could go on, I could give the 4-hour version of this speech, but I know we all want to hear from Ken and then watch the debate. But you know, he said a few months ago that he wanted to pivot from the Middle East to the Pacific. Now this is a remarkable statement. You know, the Middle East is in such good shape. Our attention away. And his response in pivoting to Asia, his entire policy with respect to China is send our Treasury Secretary to Beijing to beg the Chinese to allow their currency to appreciate. But the bottom line was that he thinks that it's possible to pivot away from the Middle East, where we have enormous interest. We've got the protection of our strongest ally, Israel, at stake. We've got friends in the Arab world who fear the consequences of the Muslim Brotherhood and even more radical political factions coming in control, who fear the unwillingness of the Obama administration to take on the mullahs in Tehran and to tell the truth about what that regime does in terms of the repression of its own people, its role as the central banker of international terrorism, its pursuit of nuclear weapons where they're perilously close to achieving what they've been after for the past 20 years. And all of this, I think, has been building as our adversaries in the Middle East and elsewhere watched the president very carefully, and they have sized him up as a weak and inattentive president. So they have obviously recalibrated their policies accordingly. And as bad as the past 4 years have been, the next 4 years are going to be even worse, because the pace and the scope of the challenges that we're going to face is going to increase. But even a Romney presidency isn't going to correct that unless we've got strong Republican representation on national security issues in the House and the Senate. This budget sequestration mechanism that Republicans in Congress agreed to, God knows why, as part of this debt ceiling legislation, where when the super committee failed to reach agreement, which was entirely predictable and probably inevitable, we've pushed ourselves into this mechanism that will cut another $500 billion from defense. And when you add what Obama had already done, you're talking about defense cuts for the United States of nearly $1.5 trillion over the first 4 years. Every other department of government, every other function has seen its budget skyrocket, with one exception: national security. I'm sure we're all glad that we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars so that Joe Biden can have a faster Acceleride from Wilmington down to Washington. But all of that money has not stimulated the economy, and yet what we're seeing is cuts in the defense sector that are potentially crippling for the United States down the road. So a Romney president needs people in the House and the Senate who understand national security, who can help make what are going to be very difficult budget decisions, both to get the economy going, but also to make sure that we repair the damage to national security that we've sustained in the past 4 years. We need these strong voices because, look, our party, for reasons best known to the leadership, has not been willing to take Obama on and charge him with neglecting national security policy. So having a few more strong voices to go along with Alan West and a few others, I think is critical. And Ken is exactly the guy who can do that. This is somebody who is steeped in global affairs, who knows the issues about national security. He knows our domestic economic issues as well. But he'd be a very strong voice, and coming from Maryland, I think would get a lot of media attention as somebody that, sort of like Scott Brown taking Teddy Kennedy's seat in the Senate from Massachusetts. And that's one of the reasons why, apart from the fact we've been friends for a long time, I think it's so important that he win this race. And that's where I want to come to the role you all can play. Obviously, you're here as his supporters. It's a very expensive proposition to run for the House. So I thank you for what you've done so far, and if you can do a little bit more, you ought to do that too. You've got friends and family and co-workers. They can do a little bit more. I tell you, the last thing any of us want is to wake up on November the 7th and see that we've lost the presidency or the Senate or this race here in Maryland by a very small margin, and we say to ourselves, gee, if we had done a little bit more, maybe the result would be different. I tell you, I spent 31 days in Florida after the 2000 election and the recount down there, and it was the worst experience of my life, with one exception, is that we kept the state for Bush. And just think about that every time. Everybody's vote counts. And then one final point. In addition to financial support, which is absolutely critical, there's going to be a barrage of advertising between now and the election, mostly at the presidential level. But and I think a lot of it will just cancel out. But what people really take seriously is what their friends and their family and their co-workers say. They really, for the people who are undecided, for the people who voted the wrong way last time and are kind of unhappy about it, who would like to see a different leadership, not just in the White House, but a stronger Republican presence in Congress. Your conversations with them, your mailing to your email acquaintances, and if you're a social media person on Twitter and Facebook, any of these kinds of contacts really have more of an influence on your friends and family and co-workers than you can imagine. So take whatever extra time you've got in the next couple of weeks. We don't have much time to the election, but your continued activity could make a huge difference. And as I say, I've been a friend of Ken's for a long time. I was surprised that he was willing to make the sacrifice that running for Congress entails, and it is a sacrifice. It's a huge amount of time, and it means going out and just working your fingers to the bone. He's doing it for all the right reasons. This has nothing to do with personal advancement on his part. It has everything to do with the future of our country. He's going to make a wonderful member of the House when he's elected. And so join me in welcoming our next member of Congress, Ken Timmerman.
Well, you heard it here from our next Secretary of State.